Hello. So, I've been working on my fully procedural 3D model, and I'm at the point where I'm starting to rig it. Um, and the rigging, I the rigging is very manual, um, but luckily I was able to figure out a way of transferring vertex groups to the procedural model. Um, the way I did that is, where is it? Ah, this is the original geometry, which has all of the vertex groups. That's the actual sphere. That's that. That has the vertex groups in it. Alright, if you just use this one, it doesn't have the vertex groups. These are not the vertex groups. Those are, you can see columns 19, columns 182. Without joining this to create the vertex groups, these are just, they're not vertex groups, they're stored named attributes. But by putting in here, you can delete everything except for one point and then join it, and it creates the vertex groups. Anyway, the rigging, this is what the model looks like before any fixes. Alright, there's two node groups that need to be put in. One is before the armature, which is, this is the one that for mine, this actually builds the entire model. But if you're using an existing 3D model that's modeled, you'd need to have a GeoNodes group before the armature, and then you'd need another one after the armature. And I'll explain why here in a moment. Alright, see, this is what it looks like with no fixes. The black lines are caused by self-intersection because I have subsurface scattering. When you have two subsurface, like two meshes intersecting, it'll create these black lines. So, I'll show you what it looks like with the fix enabled. That fixed it a little bit, and that fixed it a lot more. That's an extreme example of it being, flexed up. And that one right there doesn't do very much without that being in place as well. Kind of need both of them. Alright. Well, that's a little bit derpy looking because I don't have... This is for the other leg. See, it's... it is night... See, this one doesn't do a whole lot when the legs are not bent very much. This is just in there for the really extreme bending. This is for all the time. And if I did more work on this, I wouldn't need this, but it's just simpler to have it in there. So I'll go through. This is exactly the same thing. One's just got the right leg versus the left leg. So yeah, it's a little complicated, but it's not all that complicated. This part right here calculates the angle that this leg forms. Because this uses inverse kinematics, it takes the. I'll just go through it a little. All right, A is side number A. The zeros is the original position of the foot. This part is where the knee is. So this is the Z height of the knee. So the length of this bone right here is this. This tells me the length of that. This one starts at the knee and goes to the top of the hip. So it tells this gives me the length of this one. This one gives me the distance from the top of the hip to the foot. How do I get the foot? All right, this is where the right foot and the left foot come into play. All right, you see how these are all purple? That's because they are drivers. All right, so all it is just a simple vector. And I took, here's the rig. Click on the rig, go to pose mode, and I went to the foot, right click, copy as new driver, go back to object mode, go back to the human, find the code, and that was the X that I copied, and right click, paste driver, and you'll notice that's it's the left foot that I copied. You notice the number automatically populates. And if I go back, well, you can't really see it, but pose, let's change this to 0. Go back to the humanoid. I hate having to switch back to between object and pose. Like when I click on this, I really want to actually click on it when I click on it. Imagine that. You notice both of them go to 0. So this has the X, the Y, and the Z position of the left foot. This one has the X, Y, and Z position of the right foot. And that's the length, that's the distance between, depending on the foot, like say, distance of the left foot, it's the distance between this foot and the hip. Alright. And to find the angle, it is A times B squared. The length of A times the length of C. I don't think that's right. Should be the length of A squared. I'm going to put on pause. Let's see. I think I already shut it down. But what I have here works. I have the length of A times the length of C multiplying by 2? Oh, that's a different part of it. Okay, yes. The length of A squared plus the length of C squared, which is, the 2 leg bones, subtract out that distance squared, and then divide by 2 times AC. Again, that's A squared plus C squared minus B squared divided by 2AC. Then you take the arc cosine, and that'll give you the angle. Did I just know this formula offhand? No, I did not. I had to look it up. I looked it up, and that gives you the angle. Why is the angle something that's good? Oh, and something else. This this arc cosine, it actually returns a value in radians. So you get a value between 0 and 2 pi. 2 pi would be a 360, which would basically break your leg. So the only numbers I'm working in is between 0 and pi, which is 0 angle would be the heel of your foot. Your foot is, in between your cheeks. So that's a 0. 180 is your leg is straight and extended just like normal. 180 degrees would be pi, and 0 would obviously be 0. Now, when you bend your leg at a right angle, which would be 1/2 of pi, you don't really need to do anything. I mean, there's no intersection when you're at a right angle. You only start to intersect when you exceed that angle. So that's why I go from, I do a map range of the angle. I'm trying to think of where's the best place to start. So I take that angle, and I do a map range from 0 to 1. So what that means is from 1 to 0. The more it's bent, the larger this number will be. And this is a set position in the Y. Now, the reason why you have to have this group before the armature, is so that you know where the position is and what direction to go in. So it says it's just going in the Y, but this is of the model that has not been edited yet. It has been changed by the armature. So this is like it's, let's see, I'll go into, this is what the model looks like before the armature. Let's hide the rig. And you can see the changes are still there to the rig before, or excuse me, to the model before the rig does any work to it. You notice these are different because they have different values. They're bent at different angles. If I go back out of edit mode, did I change something? It looks like I changed something, because that looks different. Oh, I changed the position of one of the feet. It might be a little bit too extreme. Pose mode. .05. Yeah. So it's not flawless. It does have In the most extreme cases, it's still going to have a little glitchiness. I haven't worked it all out yet. Um, I'm not going to work on it anymore right now. I am done for the moment. Oh, that is such an annoying thing. Like when I click on another object, it should like take me back to object mode and actually go to that object. All right, so but where was I? All right, so as the angle decreases, this number gets larger. All right, and this checks the Z position. All right, this number right here tells me where the knee is. The knee is at 0.56 of the leg length. Actually, I think I changed that to 0.54. Yeah, 0.54. Okay, yeah, I'll leave it at 0.56 because that looks better. So this checks the distance between the knee and the point. The greater the distance, the less it impacts it. That doesn't look right. Okay. Guess I have it right. So that checks the distance and the further away from the knee. Yes, that is right, because the further away from the knee, the less it impacts it. The closer it is to the knee, the more squished it's going to get. And this is the Y. The reason I have this on here is because I don't want the knee to be squished when it should be the back of the leg. And because your leg is rounded, I want the part that is closest to the thigh to be impacted the most. Hold on. Give me 1 second. All right. So the further back on the leg, the more it's impacted. Let's prevent the knee from being activated. I did have this in here for the X position to try and squish out the sides, but it just gives me too many artifacts. I mean, that's still an artifact, but this just makes it worse. Yeah, see, that just doesn't... That doesn't even make sense, because that's the X position. Shouldn't affect the Y at all. I get some of the most bizarre stuff. I bet you it's because of that. Yeah, this is what my model looks like without the subdivision subsurf modifier. I mean, it's all janky, and then you just click that little thing out, and oh, it's all so much better. Yeah, see, I don't get that. It shouldn't make it stick up more. Anyway, moving on. Is it perfect? No, but you know, it looks a lot better than it does without it. All right, and that's just the position. That just moves it in the Y direction, so it just squishes it down. And it's in the Y direction before the leg is moved. That's very important. All right, this is the selection. Originally, I had it less than or greater than, less than some number less than number below the knee and a number above the knee. But I just realized I can just use equal with an epsilon. That increases as the angle decreases. But this is the selection. Again, you're only wanting the part that is behind the knee, not in front of the knee. And my model is perfectly lined up with the 0 axis. Or the legs are. And this right here keeps it from squishing in this part towards the knee. I'll show you what it looks like without it. Looks pretty much the same. This one right here. It's very subtle, but you can see it right there. See how it gets like really super thin? Okay, not sure if that's working the way. One, two. See, now you can see it right there. See, that's what happens when you have it for everything on the backside from like here to here. It's all being squished in, which means like right at the back of your knees being pressed in when it shouldn't be. That's why I use not equal to that one. Pushes this back, or doesn't allow it to be pushed forward, I should say. But before I even do any of that, this, how do I explain this part? This helps prevent this scales down like this part right here. It moves all the points further down on the mesh away from the knee. It helps prevent let me disable this. Alright. See how it just overlaps a little bit? And without those, it overlaps a whole lot. All it does, you see this loop here? This is on the calf. It will slide those down. Just slides them down. That's all it does. This one does the same thing on the thigh. Slides them up. So takes the Y position and compares it to this value. This value you kind of fiddle with a little bit. Kind of get different results. Kind of hard to tell which one's better, which one's worse. I mean, that looks about the same on that one. Yeah, so just just gonna have to tinker around with it a little bit. And find the right numbers. But this selects a certain range of points that are just below the knee. And scales them to the center is even further beneath the knee than the lowest point. So it all scales them down to a point below both of those. Same thing up here. Scales them to a point. For this one I just used the top one, and it scales all of them towards the top. It worked just fine. And this is a multiple of the leg length, so that I know where the position of the knee is. A lot of this math you won't need with your model, because if you do a hand model, you just click on the ring that is your knee, and you look at the position, and you just put in the position number. Because mine's all procedural, I have to use a procedure to determine where the knee is. So that scales it. That moves the back of the calf Z down, moves the back of the thigh above the knee up, and that moves it in the Y direction, which is this direction, to squish it. That's it. Just squishes a little bit and moves the Z points down. This one is actually a little bit simpler. I know this looks like a lot, but this is actually two different knees. right here. Yeah. Control, 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 shift. Okay. Shift. All right, that's two different knees. So, also, this right here is a stored attribute. I identified the calf. I'll take you to where I identify it at. So this is my vertex. Determine my vertex for my, or excuse me, my weights for my vertex groups for my joints. So I take everything that is the shin but is behind less than 0 on the y coordinate so that it gets the back and not the whole leg. And I named that calf. Did the exact same thing for the thigh. Basically, it just gets the back half of the thigh. With yours, you know the points, you know where the thigh is. You just tell it which one's the thigh and which one's the calf. But mine's all procedural, so I have to transfer the data from other parts of the program. So this is the whole model after the armature has done its work. And then this is just the thigh. See, just the thigh. That's everything but the thigh. And I'm hitting Alt-Shift to view different parts of it. So I do a ray trace from the mesh to the thigh. Alright, so this, what I'm doing now, this is how you detect if your mesh is inside another mesh. I'm trying to see if any part of the mesh is inside the thigh. You can use the normal or the depending on, you need to know the part that's going to, let me mute this, mute wireframe. Alright, yeah. Alright, so this part right here is actually the calf that is inside the thigh. So this part right here is the calf. This part right here is the thigh. And they're overlap. So the part right here that points down here, see, this is the normal that points up. This is the negative normal that points down. So I do a dot product, or actually I do a ray trace with the negative of the normal. So it's doing a ray trace here, and it's going to hit the thigh, which is down here. See, it'll hit this part right here. Alright, this is the back side of the thigh, so this is hitting a negative normal as well. So I do a dot product of the negative normal and the negative normal and make sure it's greater than 0. That means that it's, this right here determines that it is inside. With the, if you had two separate meshes, you'd use the regular normal. And this, I think, would be less than or greater than, I think it'd be less than 0. I'd have to look at my other program to see if it's less than or greater than. But mine, it's less than, it's greater than, excuse me. So it checks to see if it's part of the calf. and then that's inside the thigh, and this is a mix RGB, which is kind of like a I'll just show you what it does. At 1, it's at the position. At 0, it's at the hit position of wherever it was at. The problem with going that's actually not doing it now. Undo, undo, undo. Alright. I was like, why does it still look broken? It's because this one's muted. And this does the exact same thing, but it checks to see. This separates out the calf after it's moved, because I don't move it the whole way, I only move it half the way. Then checks to see, it ray traces the thigh to see if it touches the calf, and it's inside the calf still. Part of the thigh. And it sets the position equal to the where it hit. There's a couple things I've tried in here as well. Merge position, or merge by distance. That kind of sort of works. .03? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, you can see it. It kind of gives the same results. But I think when you're animating, it would become glitchy if you use merge by distance. Basically, it's merging everything that's inside. At least it's supposed to be. It'd need to be. I mean, it yields similar results. I mean, that's still pretty clean. But I think it would generate artifacts. So you can do either one of these two, either merge by distance or set the position equal to the hit area. And this is just for the other leg. And I'll show you what it looks like with it off. I mean, you can, that doesn't look terrible, except for, I mean, you can see where it intersects. I mean, this one you can't see at all. But it does intersect. Turn it off. And then turn both of these off. And you can see this is what I'm sitting there rigging this model, and these are what my legs look like there. I mean, just, yeah, just not acceptable. And this will work on just a standard model as well. The same principles. Your math will be a little bit different. I mean, the math will be the same, but your variables will be different. But thought I would share.